This is Dan Rogers, your host on We the People Town Square, coming to you from the center of the universe, the high plains of Texas, near the headwaters of the Prairie Dog Town Fork of the Red River. Today is January the 5th of 2024, and today we are here with Pamela Sirmon, who's running for the 108th District Judge. Pamela,
hi.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. I'm glad you had me.
So you want to be a judge again?
I want to be a judge again.
So let's tell the voters, the primary voters, why you want to run for the 108th.
It's an interesting question. When Doug Woodburn was unable to run again because of the age requirement, it became an open seat, and I miss being on the judiciary. I've been a licensed lawyer 34 years, and 24 of those as a judge, and I feel a strong calling for that. I'm passionate about judicial administration, and I wanted to go back. So no one's going to call and give it to me, so I'm running for it.
Well, very good. Why don't we explain a little bit about how the judicial system in Potter County works? Because a lot of people who have never had to experience it, and hopefully none of us do, they don't understand really how that's set up. Can you explain how that is for the voters?
Well, in Texas, we have district courts, and there are so many district courts. Like we had three, the 320th is in Amarillo, so every time they add one, they add another number. But in Potter County, we have 5 district courts. In Randall County, we have 3. We share those 5 district courts. The 108th and the 320th are Potter-only district courts. The 181st, the 47th, and the 251st go also to Randall, and the 47th also goes to Armstrong. So it's kind of, each court is set up by the legislature, and they determine which counties you'll cover. When you have all the district courts you're going to get, and you need more courts, more activities, then a county can apply to get a county court at law. And those are numbered, like Potter has 2 and Randall has 2. If you go down in Houston, they have 40. But those courts also cover the business of the county. And we're assigned by statute what work we'll do. Like a statutory county court at law means you're created by a statute, by the legislature. Does that help a little?
Yeah, I think that helps us understand how it's set up and why it's set up the way that it is. And then beyond that, if somebody appeals, then it goes to the Court of Appeals.
The Court of Appeals, and there's now 15 after our last legislative session, 15 courts of appeals in the state of Texas, and we luckily have one of those in Amarillo, the 7th Court of Appeal. And it covers, I don't remember if it's 42 or 48 counties, and if that doesn't give them enough to do, then they can be assigned cases from those other 14 appellate jurisdictions. And if that's what we call, the trial courts are the ones we're talking about, county court at law and district court. Appellate courts are the Court of Appeals. And then the highest level is the Texas Supreme Court for civil and family, and then the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, then for the criminal cases. After that, it's federal court.
So Texas basically has 2 Supreme Courts.
We do, which is unique to our state.
Yeah, one for civil and one for criminal.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't know that.
They do not.
But you know it.
Yeah, I know it. I've been practicing law for 34 years. I know that much.
So what type of cases does the 108th hear?
The 108th has the exact same caseload as the 320th did. They split 40% each of the criminal felony cases, and they split, I think, like 25 or 30% of the family cases and about 15 of the civil cases. The way it works out is family cases can be heard in any of the 7 courts that serve Potter, but by judicial decision, we meet as judges and decide how we're going to break them out, how we're going to organize them. And, of course, the courts that have to go between Potter and Randall really need fewer family cases because they take so much time, so they don't get any. The 3 courts that go from Potter to Randall take 0 family. So the family cases are divided, again, by the 320th, the 108th, and then county courts 1 and 2 take 10% apiece.
And how are those cases assigned?
Randomly, a computer. When you file your case, if it's a new case, it's randomly assigned. If it's a court of continuing jurisdiction, like you've had a divorce and you're coming back to modify, you have to go back to your original court. And so that way some courts will get a bigger caseload because they have so many, we're all kind of keeping the same amount of new cases, but if you have modifications, it can really fill your court up.
So how does a case get into federal court? Does it have to be filed at the local level first?
Yes, federal cases are removed out of either filed originally as a federal matter or they're removed out of the state court. But they have to have a reason to take them and put them in federal court. That is that they have an issue that involves federal law or it involves people that are not all in the same state. So they get moved around into the federal courts.
But would somebody file a federal case in a district court and then it gets moved, or can they go straight to federal court?
It can go straight to the federal court. But occasionally you do have one that gets filed in state district court. And then, after everybody gets in, all the parties, somebody asks that it gets removed into this federal system because it involves somebody from another state or a federal issue.
Yeah, I got you. So what would you do to improve on 108th District Court? Is there anything you would do different than Judge Woodburn?
I would, and this is not a slight on Doug Woodburn. Judge Woodburn has been an excellent member of the judiciary. I run my cases harder. I'm a pusher. I try to move my cases efficiently as possible. The first thing I do, I've already had 2 different courts in Potter County. And what I did when I got there is I ran everything from the clerk and knew exactly what cases were pending. And then I looked at the age of those cases and I put them on dismissal dockets if they were old. A dismissal docket says, work your case or it will be dismissed. And you give them 6 to 8 months. You don't dismiss it the next day. You give them clear notice. You're going to have to work this case. You're going to have to finalize it. You're going to have to try it, or it's going to go into the tubes because they can't just pend. And so that's what I would do in that court. I would go in and immediately find out what cases are pending, the ages of the case, and then I'd set the older cases to be moved.
So do you have a lot of cases that just sit there and flounder while somebody's sitting in jail?
That is not typical, but it has become true during our post-COVID. As you know, the courthouse in Potter County, as so many of us it was closed from March 16th to January 15th. About 10 full months the courthouse was closed. We could go in, we that worked in the courthouse, and that's what we did. We went to work and we turned on the Zoom, and we could do Zoom things. So family and civil kept moving along, but criminal cases, you couldn't really Zoom contested criminal, and you sure couldn't do a contested criminal trial. I think actually Judge Woodburn's the only person in Potter that actually held a contested criminal jury trial, and he used the embassy suites. And then they had COVID positive people afterwards, and no one else did one. So we have a backlog. We're working through our backlog, and here's the problem. You can't move cases without lawyers. There's the problem. People go, why can't we move cases? Well, 1, we have a shortage of court reporters, and 2, we have a shortage of lawyers. I was in Lubbock yesterday for
That's surprising.
It is, isn't it? When I went to law school, we started 250 people in a first-year law school class. Now they're starting 150 or 160. There's less people going to law school. Law school is expensive. And when they graduate out, they're not moving to Amarillo, Texas. When I was in Lubbock, as I said yesterday, for a continuing education on criminal law, they had the speaker talk about how many lawyers we are running out of. And it's like the population of lawyers in Potter and Lubbock over the age of 55 is more than 25% of your lawyers. So we are aging out, but not aging up. It's very typical in Potter County that when you hire a young lawyer, they're from the Dallas area, Houston area, San Antonio. They come here out of law school, work 2 or 3 years, and then they've got 2 or 3 years experience, and they're off to where mom and dad are from, or the girlfriend's from, or the boyfriend's from. So we have a training ground here. We have a hard time keeping people here.
Why do you think people are not going to law school?
It's expensive.
Price.
Oh, yes. Our daughter graduated from law school. She's a practicing lawyer here in Amarillo now, which surprised us. She practiced in Houston for a year and came back to Amarillo. She said it was no fun to sit in traffic, which is what she did with a lot of her time.
Yep.
But it is hard to have young people move into Amarillo. That's a conversation that's ongoing. I'm on the board for the Amarillo Texas Tech Health Sciences Center, Amarillo. And we had a big meeting about a year ago. It's like, how do we get these young people that go through the medical school to stay in the Amarillo area? We're graduating out nurses and doctors and pharmacists, and they're single people that haven't met their partner spouse, and so they leave here. Or they're from Dallas and they go home to family. So that's actually something that's being worked on here in Amarillo and other areas. How do we get young people here in Amarillo?
I can't imagine anybody wanting to live anywhere but Amarillo.
Exactly. I mean, it is. I lived in the Houston, Dallas area, and of course Lubbock for school. And I enjoyed I lived in College Station too for a year and a half when I worked for the A&M system. I loved all of those, but I always knew I was coming home. I wouldn't want to raise a family anywhere else.
Yeah. So what sets you apart? You've got three competitors, I guess, for this race. There's 4 of you. What sets you apart from your opponents, and why should people choose you over them?
Judicial experience. All 4 of us are within a year or 2 of age. We're all the same age. I think we've all practiced law about 30. I'm 34. I think one of them's 33, one's 32, and I'm not sure the other one may be 30. We're all in the same age group, same length of service as lawyers. I'm the only one with judicial experience. It is unusual for a judge to come back. So, yeah, I have 24 years on the bench that no one else has. I have done the very cases this court does on a daily basis for years. I mean, thousands of these cases. I looked when I was leaving the 320th, I had like 460 jury trials plus. That's a lot of jury trials to sit through. So that's my big key. I've been there. I've done it. I've proven I can do it. I do it efficiently.
Well, that sounds good. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the voters? Like, do you have a website, or how do people learn more about you?
Well, I was late to the game because, other people knew they wanted to do this and I thought I was done. So we have just gotten all of our stuff started in the last week. We have the Facebook page, Sirmon for Judge. We have the website. It's selectsirmon.com. There's an Instagram and a LinkedIn, which I have no idea how to use because as a judge, you don't do those things. You don't put yourself out there. So right. I'm learning to do all that. So those are our connections. We're passing out our brochures, putting up our billboards and our signs. People will they're going to be through with us by the time March 5th gets here. We're all going to be getting our paperwork out. But I have my law firm, sirmonlawfirm@gmail.com is an easy way to get a hold of me if you can't reach me through selectsirmon.com.
So you've been in private practice in the last few years?
Yeah, and I was in private practice before I went on the bench before, and I'm back in private practice. I do family and criminal cases, and I do mediate family law cases. I went through mediation training, and I've got 64 hours, and I'm certified to mediate.
Cool. Well, we want to commend you for having the courage to step out and run again. I know that takes a lot of fortitude to do it,
It is no fun to run for office, Dan.
No.
I mean, it's fun to meet people. It's fun to knock on their doors and explain the judicial system to them because most people, thankfully, don't know the courthouse system. They just know they have jury duty once a year. So it's fun. It's interesting to meet the people. I do enjoy that. I feel I'm passionate about moving cases and giving people their time that they need. I think one of the things I put in one of my brochures, real listening is a learned skill. We don't normally listen to people. We kind of listen and we formulate our answer before they quit talking. And so that is something over 24 years I've learned to close my mouth and open my mind and listen to what they have to say. Because I know the litigants in the court, this can be the most important day of their life. This is their criminal case, their family custody case, their whatever it is. And what you say, what you come out of your mouth as your final ruling affects people greatly. And so I had a real passion for that and the decision making and making it well.
That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right?
Exactly. We usually use those reverse, but yes.
Yeah, we see it every day, but nobody pays any attention to that fact, right?
No, sir, they don't.
Well, very good. We appreciate you coming by, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate the time that you've given us to have these videos.
No worries.